good on ear protection? Does anybody want ear protection that doesn't have it? Show of hands. Oh, you guys are good. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks for coming out. My name's Kyle. This is my house and my studio. Has anybody seen me demo? I haven't demoed for you guys in a long time. Like pre-COVID. Anybody? Was it 2019? Yeah, it was like right before COVID, wasn't it? Yeah. So we used to have a shop out in Richmond in Scott's Edition, and those of you guys that know Richmond know what's happened to Scott's Edition and whatnot. But anyway, a couple years ago, we started, well actually around that time I was looking for a property, but it took me about 2.5 years to finally find one where I could put the shop on the same property as my house. Got tired of paying a landlord. You know, Scott's Edition was getting more expensive by the minute. It was also getting hard to do business there. Like getting your steel truck to back up to your loading dock is kind of a pain in the butt when everybody's off at the brewery parking in your parking lot. So anyway, long story short, we found this property and then we built a modest studio, but we also had a gallery in my wife's studio as well, which I'll walk people up and we can look at some finished work at the end of this if you guys want. But anyway, I've been doing this over 25 years at this point. It's kind of hard to imagine. My buddy Josh Blum is here. We started together at Stokes of England in '97. Has it been that long? Yeah, 96 and 97. Yeah, that's right. You were there before I was. Yeah. I mean, we were kids. I was 19 when I started. Originally, I was an environmental resource manager, management major at Virginia Tech, and decided that wasn't my thing. Came home, and my dad was a hobbyist blacksmith, and he's like, well, you always seem to like blacksmithing, and so my folks kind of foisted me off on Stokes of England, and at the time, it was a really awesome company. Dale Morris, who a lot of you know, he was the shop foreman there at the time. So I got to cut my teeth under his tutelage. Andrew Molinaro was another smith that was there at the time. It was really good. Even Steve knew his stuff, but also Steve was gracious enough to send me to England. I got to work with his dad, which was pretty awesome to work with a guy that's been doing it his entire life. And Steve, Joe Stokes at the time was 83 years old. He's obviously not with us anymore, but I remember driving through Shropshire, England with him, and he was like, you see that gate? I made that gate 55 years ago. And it looked gorgeous, you know, like the quality and the craftsmanship was amazing. I was like, dude, that is some sweet stuff. But anyway, I got to study some really cool architecture with him as well. And then I went up to Pennsylvania and helped Andrew start Artisans of the Anvil with Josh. And then realized, you know, I was a competent smith at that point. I was a journeyman smith, but I really felt like I needed design help. Came back home, didn't really like living up north. I really love Virginia. Virginia's perfect, especially here. You're close to the beach, you're close to the mountains. You can shovel snow easily. In Pennsylvania, you can't shovel snow that well because there's just so much of it. But anyway, went to VCU and got my degree in fine arts. So I have a BFA in craft and material studies from there with a focus in furniture design, which is pretty much my bread and butter. I mostly do furniture. I do a lot of sculpture and I do railing. And if anybody wants, anytime you can walk up here and you can see I've got 3 different jobs that I'm working on. One of them is a bronze coffee table that I'm working on. And you can see kind of my process. I've got the sketch from the client. I've got my note sketches for how much money I got to spend in bronze, which is outrageous if anybody's ever bought silicon bronze. My maquette that I made for the client for the table leg. This is a frame for a railing I'm doing. There's a bunch of the other panels laying back here. Here's the sketch work for that. And then I've got what I'm going to demonstrate for you guys today, which is really where my wife and I are going with our work. We're starting to do a lot of combining her mosaic skills and my blacksmithing stuff. So one of the things I loved about her work is the absolute color saturation you get with mosaic tesserae. This material is called smalty. It is the traditional mosaic material from Italy. It's like a really thick, high saturation color glass. And we'll see lots more examples up there. But the two elements I'm going to demonstrate for you guys today are forging these really high texture ginkgo leaves and also these little trays to hold her work. And that was always the mechanic thing I had to think up with. How are we going to adhere her work to mine and not make it look, you know, weird? So encapsulating like this gives it a protective edge, and it just ties it into the forge work. And personally, I think it works out really well. There's a photo album here of a bunch of our work that we've done together. But anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with these leaves, and I'll show you guys how I do that. I do a lot of life drawing when I'm working. I think that everybody, if you want to do botanicals, keep a sketchbook and just take it with you wherever you go. But this sculpture just started as just some really rough ginkgo sculpture. You know, I wanted to look like a branch off the tree. You know, I was playing with how her tile is going to work in the piece. And then when I was in Richmond one day, I went ahead and by the Carillon, there's a gorgeous ginkgo tree. So if you're trying to do realistic work, try to find actual nature to look at. Have a visual model while you're doing it. And it gives you an idea for like mass, like how thick the stem is to the leaf, what are the dimensions of the leaf, what variety of leaves are on a ginkgo tree. I was amazed that no two leaves were alike. I kept finding all these different leaves. You get these ones with these really deep veins down the centers of them. Some that just have like a little notch to it. They all have these really raggedy edges, but just the shape really lends itself well to some cross-peen texture when you're forging. So from that, what I did was I pressed a couple of leaves so they're nice and flat, and I can photocopy them, okay? Because I wanted to do something that was an actual size dimension of a ginkgo leaf, okay? So I got my photocopies, and I cut them out, and that gave me a good idea for what size I want to do, and then I had to come up with a prototype. This is my prototype leaf that I first made, and I'll demonstrate, you know, obviously how I did this today. But I didn't like how rounded this is, so we're going to do some file work and how to just kind of give that edge a little more life to it, okay? And I'll talk about the trays more when we get to that. I'm going to finish demonstrating this later, but I'm going to start with the ginkgos, with the forged ginkgo leaves. I'm going to do two different sizes. Whenever I do botanicals, I try to do 2 to 4 different size leaves because trees don't have all one size leaf, right? And it's a good variety, it looks nice. I hate it when I see someone's work and all the leaves are exactly the same. It's like they just went to King Architectural Metals and they hit the buy item button and they just bought all these crappy leaves. Don't do that. You could, if you wanted, cut all these out of plate. That's fair. I don't really like cutting a lot of stuff out of plate, although on the trays you're going to have to cut them out of plate. What I have done in the past, if I have a big architectural project and it's got a lot of leaves, I need a lot of like plate steel cut, is I'll come up with patterns, I'll render it in a DXF file, and I'll send it to my friends at Master Machine, and I'll have them water jet cut out several different varieties of leaf that I can then go and texture and vein and shape so they actually look like leaves, okay? But these, we're going to shape these 100% from scratch. So this is 1/4 by 1 inch, and this is 1/4 by 1 1/4. The reason I'm starting with something thick, I don't really need something thick, but I want really chunky texture. Tell you what, you guys can pass that around. You can kind of get a feel for that cross peen. So this is, honestly, they're really simple to make. So I hope I don't bore you guys. But you got to have really good control with your cross peen on this. Because I'm going to be really going aggressive with this because I'm going to take that flat bar, I'm going to really be spreading it out thin, okay? And also I want to control it so I don't have too much of a lump on one side or the other. Hopefully these look as nice as the ones I put in this. For some reason, whenever you demonstrate, it never looks as nice as the work you're doing in your shop by yourself, you know. But anyway, as far as a cross-peen hammer goes, I love this. I've had this hammer for, I think, 20 plus years at this point. This is a Swedish cross-peen. It's a, what size is this? I can never remember. 1,000 grams? Yeah, it's 1,000. It's got some good weight to it. I love the petting house handles because they tend to be longer. And I shift up and down my handle a lot. You know, there are times when you're all the way out here and I've only got half the handle in there because I really want to give this a blow. But safety on this, be really careful about your anvil, okay? Like when you're doing cross-peen, especially if you're tired because you've made 20 of these already, you just really want to be watching the peen because there are times when half of that peen is going to be over the edge of the steel. Don't be hitting your anvil. Don't dent up your anvil, okay? But anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set, we're going to make like a bow tie shape. Josh, can you hand me a piece of chalk, the shelf with the, yeah, there we go. Jesse's got it. Cool. I need something to draw on. It's not going to show up on the video if I draw on the floor, right?
Front side of the anvil.
Yeah, front side of the anvil. There you go. So what we're going to do is on the end of our bar, we're going to kind of make this. Okay? And the reason for that is I want to get this so I can make a nice graceful stem. But the other thing we're going to do is on the 1/4 inch dimension, it's going to be more like this. I'm trying to exaggerate a little bit. So where this is a 1/4 inch thick out here, this is going to be like an 1/8. It's going to be sloping back. The reason for that is if you look at that leaf, you don't want, you're going to be stretching the front of the leaf a lot. That's going to really thin out, okay? You want proportionally the back to not look so fat. Because a real ginkgo leaf is nice and graceful and thin the whole way, right? So we don't want a big chunk of material back there. So a lot of this I'm going to be using, the other thing I like about this hammer, the square face has this really aggressive edge to it and it's great for setting a corner, okay? Am I yelling too loud? I keep forgetting I'm mic'd, and I'm used to yelling at people in a shop. You guys good?
And I got the speaker on so they can hear it out there.
It's funny, like when you're used to like being in a loud shop working with a bunch of dudes, and you're like yelling at each other all day, and then you go home and you're still in yelling shop mode. You're like, "Hey, honey, how's it going?" You're like, you know, Johanna would always be like, "Cut the shop voice. You're home now. You know, like, it's enough." Oh yeah, I robbed you of the visual. All right, it usually takes a couple heats to set this corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set about a square, so inch by inch. Roll that up, okay? Hit it, just set it. Flip it. Come to the back side here. I'm going to hit the front section. All right. All right, so that's the beginning of it. Okay, it's a little wonky. Now, obviously, you can do this in any flat bar you want. You know, if you want to really make amazing, awesome leaves, you can try to do this in a 2 or a 3-inch flat bar. Good luck. It's going to want to waffle on you, and that's a lot of mass. I mean, you got to think with it. That's to get this material to move this way is going to take you a lot of effort. So the thicker the flat bar, obviously, the more work it is. But you're going to have some really big, amazing leaves. We're getting more and more bow tie-y. I've experimented with this and tried doing like a press where you press it down, and I just found that the hammer really worked that gradual shape better. So plus it's just rudimentary. It's all done right here. It doesn't involve a lot of tooling and whatnot. Now, one thing you're going to really want to do is not overdo it and make it too thin. I'm sure you guys all know there's nothing worse than like making a leaf and then it breaks off like in the final stages. It's very frustrating. All right, so that's about as far as I'm going to take this bow tie for now. The next thing I need to do is see how I'm way too thick on this plane. So I'm going to use the horn, like back here, just so I can stretch that middle section enough.
Do you have enough material where you could leave a step-by-step?
I have not made a storyboard of this yet, but I'm tempted on doing it. We'll see. Yeah. It wouldn't be that bad. There's actually, like my bottle opener I used to make tons of. There's a, Jesse, top shelf, straight ahead. Yeah, I'll probably make a storyboard like that for this leaf at some point. Just shows all the steps. That's all done on the anvil too. That's all traditional. If they had pop bottles back in the day, that's how they would have made it. When I'm on the clock doing this, I'm probably doing like 3 or 4 of these at a time. I can't help it. You know, I was a production smith for so many years. You know, that whole saying, strike while the iron's hot, but you also got to eat. All right, so we're going to thin this now. We're just going to bring it out here on the horn. Clean it up some more. Definitely don't work below cherry red at this point because we're being so aggressive. We're asking these molecules right here to do so much work. We're telling them to get the hell out of the way. And if you go too much, you're going to delaminate, you're going to stress fracture that, and you're going to be so mad. Now I'm working both sides of the bow tie, even though the front is only going to be the leaf. Here's the nice thing about this forging. When I finish this leaf out, I'm going to hot cut it right here, okay? I'm then going to hot cut it here, and I've already got the blank for the next leaf done. Before I hot cut it, I'm going to go ahead and stretch the stem of the leaf while it's still attached to this bar, because trying to grab this in a pair of tongs and stretch that end out is just stupid, you know? All the things that you learn through doing this over and over and over again, and then going, hey, you know what? That was dumb. Why didn't I do this step before I did that step? So I'm really thinning it almost down to, it's about 3/16 now. I'm going to take it down to 1/8, and then I'm going to start doing this cross beam pattern. How many of these? So far. A couple hundred. I don't know. There's some leaf forms I probably made several thousand, like ivy leaves. I made probably thousands of those. I like finding different species that have cool leaf patterns to them that just experiment to see if they look good as a forged leaf, and sometimes they just don't. Easy now. All right, I think one more heat on that. That one will be good. This one's just about got it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. All right. All right. So right now, I've got the the thicker end is at the front, okay? Joe, is that showing up? Can you see that? And then it's just thinned out to like a fat eighth in the back, okay? This, you don't need to go any thinner than this right now. We're gonna forge that tail after we complete the leaf. Never finish a tail or a stem on a leaf before you finish out the leaf. You can always go back and work it. And the reason being is like this takes so much heat in the gas, especially if you're using a gas forge. I don't have a coal forge. At some point I'll probably put one in out here, but just haven't gotten around to it. I've been working on gas now for 15 years and no, 17 years. I'm not used to coal anymore. I have to relearn coal at this point. But anyway, in a coal forge, yeah, you could just put it in your firebox to here. Gas forge, you can't do that. You're just eating this up the whole time. But anyway, so that's that thickness I'm talking about. A little thinner back here than up here. That way we have a lot of mass to do this, because that ginkgo leaf is going to be way out. It's like the mother of all fishtails. Real subtle. Just one subtle trick that in the end looks a lot better. Cool. Okay. Yes. All right, that one's pretty good. I run all the steps through it same. So I'll be doing the bow tie, bop, 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 bop. Then I'm gonna do the leaf, bop, 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 bop. Then I'm gonna cut it, do the stem. Yeah, yeah. Keep your brain on one simple task all at once. Get some good tunes going on the stereo, you know. The one thing I like about the gas forge is I can dial that down to like 5 psi, so I'm not cooking the crap out of my steel, and have a whole bunch of stuff in there and just start playing it. All right. So this is where people screw up their anvil, and hopefully I won't. I'm just really hitting it. Really focusing on the top. Don't do what I just did. Don't hit your anvil. And that's it. Don't work harder than you have to, okay? I see people like they're trying to still stretch material and it's like dull red and black. I'm like, why are you doing that? Get another heat, get another heat. But we're gonna do this a couple times and this is really gonna open up. So right now I'm just focusing on the end. I'm overhanging my crosspeen, but I'm not, this is where you angle your crosspeen is like vital. Don't go too aggressive, okay? Don't be like this. You're gonna screw up your anvil, all right? Keep it nice and level. Be aware of the thickness of your material so you're not compressing it to the point where your hammer is hitting. You'll know when you hit the anvil. See, I'm working the front. Really working it out. How wide can I go? All right, so there's 2 heats. And the other thing I'm doing is, excuse me, I'm like pivoting on the back corner of my peen. So this is stationary. I am not doing this. This is not accurate. I have yet to meet a blacksmith that can do this accurately. This is nothing but a machine, okay? Keeping the elbow in, keeping my shoulder in line. Boom, boom, boom. If you need more control, choke up on the bat, okay? If you're more confident, come on out. There's a lot more power out here than there is in here. I never understood those Yuri Hoffy hammers, those little stubby handles. I'm like, no, I love this. First gear, second gear, third gear. Oh yeah, overdrive, you know? But yeah, definitely this does the movement, and then it's pivoting on that back corner, so I'm fanning it out. So my texture isn't cross each other. It's all in line like the veins on a leaf. Or so tip it up.
Tip it up so I can see
Cool.
what it looks like.
Pretty close to there, I think. I'm going to work it one more because I can't help myself. So this is the bigger of the two. This is, you know, the 1.25 inches, and it's amazing how much that extra little 1/4 inch gets you in mass. And I could stretch this another heat. I think I probably will. And then we're going to cut it. We're going to work on our stem. That's about as far as I'm going to go. And I'm just going to add some veining. Give him some wambles. And now he's got some shape to it. Okay? All right, at this point, I'm going to nip it, flip it around with a pair of tongs, and I'm going to forge that stem. Now this guy, I'm not really happy with the shape. It's not as consistent. That's okay. I mean, blacksmiths have been doing file work for years, man. Or the electric file, as we call it, the angle grinder. So I can even it up at the end. I'm not really worried about that. Really what I like is the consistency and the texture. Give it a little bit of shape on the edge. Now we'll do the tail, or the stem. And then we can go back and we can give it some file teeth or something on the edge, okay? All right. Ah, right. I put it up here so I'd remember where it is. All right, so I could keep going. I could forge the stem on this. I could then cut that and then forge that leaf. Unfortunately, when you're forging that leaf, you would have a pair of tongs, and you're going to be back here, and you're going to have to be really careful about your cross pieces. You don't screw up your anvil. Normally, what I do is I keep it close to my hardy hole so that my overlap is right at the hardy hole. This petting house has this really nice eased edge on the hardy, which is great because it just adds a little bit of a buffer. You know, but if I'm over here doing it, if I was pulling one of these, there's a lot of risk that I'm going to be screwing this up. Most of this I'm going to stretch on the horn. Whoa there, Kyle. Easy there, big hammer. So at this point, if you were a little thick back here, you could use your horn to help stretch that out. Now this is vital too, man. Get another heat. Don't try to work it anymore. There's not enough color in this thing. You're going to split this, and then, you know, for how you plan to attach it to your finished piece, be it MIG weld, TIG, or maybe you want to forge weld it. If this is all brittle and full of stress fractures, that's crap metal, man. It's done. You can't use it. Okay, so don't think you got to finish it on this heat. Get another heat. Yeah, it'll take a minute. All right. Sure, we'll put some curl to it. Just give me a little curl so it looks like it's growing right off the tree. Okay, this one at this point is done. Now when I get to the white smithing part, obviously I want this as annealed as possible so that my files, don't have to work as hard. Now, the one thing I hate about a gas forge, honestly, it's mostly because I'm yakking more than I'm actually working, so it's spending more time in that hot box. It's got a lot of fire scale on it. One of the things I do is I'll clamp this in a vise right after I forge it, and then I'll take a wire brush, an electric wire brush, and I'll wire brush it. Scale comes off a lot easier when it's hot than if you let this cool. That being said, the worst injuries I've ever had in a blacksmith shop is from a wire brush. All right, so we've got, this one's got a nice curve to it. I love it. I love these lobes on the side. It even with that aggressive cross peening, you get a little bit of undulation in that top edge. But I'm gonna let this cool when we do the next demo, and then I'll go in and I'll show you guys how to file those little lobes, and we'll try to do a vein cut in this one, I think, too. Like leaves are three-dimensional. They should have a three-dimensional shape to them, And then this is plenty of stem for me to weld. I can nip it back if I need to. I can gang weld it to a piece of 3/16 round or something. All right, nobody touch that. Well, you can touch it. You're just going to get a nice tattoo. The main reason I like to forge these out of one piece as opposed to cutting these out of sheet is I do feel like they end up with a lot more character. It's a lot more fun to work here than at a bandsaw. Yep. Come back here. Get back here. You're not done. Yeah, see the fire scale on this is my yakking one. It's really coated. Yeah. This would be, frankly, I would not use this in a piece. I could resurrect it if I really wanted to. I could clean that and I could, and do my file work on it. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I'm probably just going to throw this one out. And everybody knows not to quench stuff you're going to file, right? Yeah? All right.
Did you adjust those tongs just for those leaves? Did you adjust the tongs just for those leaves, or did you already have the tongs set?
I already had those tongs set. Those tongs are like 1/8" material-ish.
Well, I noticed you have 90 on there, so it helps out a lot.
Oh yeah. You know what? I don't know where. I saw some smith using a pattern like this, and I made these. Most of the tongs I have, I make, and I just make them as needed.
Makes sense for the
Yeah.
size of this and how wide it is versus normally you have a thinner aspect.
Mm-hmm. Now you got to treat these with kid gloves. In fact, these are a little stretched out on the ends. The ends tend to get hot and they start to open it up. So I have to reset them every once in a while. They're very delicate, lightweight tongs, I mean, as far as tongs go, that's all I have. Like, you walk into shops and there's like a wall of tongs. I'm like, yeah, it looks great, but you're going to be spending more time going, I had a pair of tongs and it perfectly fit this piece of 7/16 square, and I know it's somewhere on this wall. Just like, honestly, Blacksmith Supply, these guys. These are great. They don't break the bank. I think they're like 35 bucks a pop. I use the crap out of these Tom Tongs, man. I love these. You can hold round and square. Ooh, yeah. Now they will chew stuff up because they're really aggressive, but Yeah, like just patterns like that, real easy. You know, when Dale was demonstrating for the guild, what was that, February? And he had a really great bit of advice. He's talking about bending dogs. And like, don't spend hours making a traditional bending dog. Just weld that shit together, man. Like, do you want to make tools in your shop, or do you want to make art and fun stuff? And like, tongs are a tool. I could spend hours making a pair of tongs. In fact, I do spend hours making a pair of tongs. This is one of the hottest items in my retail shop. It's forged fab. It's not traditional. You can hiss if you want. But anyway, it's a monogram fire tool. It's meant for the bonfire, so you can stand there like Conan and look all boss and hip and cool. And you get your initial in here. There's an example on the wall of a K I did. I sell the crap out of these, man. These with the bonfire pokers. This pair of tongs, front to back, I think it takes me 2.5 hours. Okay? But this is a nice retail set. When it's all cleaned up and waxed, it looks good on someone's wall. You know, these are functioning tools. They just get the job done, man. I don't care what they look like. Huh? What's our MSRP on these? 2 something? Free shipping? We ship them all the way to Australia. It always baffles me when someone in Australia buys something. I'm like, can you find a local blacksmith? They are in Australia. I know they are. Yeah. Yeah, this is how I make my Christmas for my kids every year. Pay my rent, pay my mortgage. A lot of this stuff. Yeah. I never thought that you could make a living doing these. It's one of the many facets. That's the other thing. It's like, as a professional smith, you know, I can't put all my eggs in one basket. I'm making fire tools, I'm making sculpture, I'm doing rails, I'm doing furniture, you know, what have you. The market always, in the art trades, always does this. It ebbs and flows. You know, the Christmas time, everybody's got money to burn. What happens in January? Everybody ran out of money, now they got to pay their taxes. Yeah. I should demo the tong blanks on that at some point. That's a fun, those are, the business end of the tongs are done on the fly press and the anvil. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make these little trays that hold the mosaic in. Now, these are 16 gauge. It does not need to be that thick. The reason it's 16 gauge is because I ran out of 18 gauge. 18 gauge is a lot easier to do on the fly press than 16 gauge. 12 gauge is a lot harder than 16 gauge. It's really funny. You go to machine shops and you're like, hey, you guys got a stomp shear? Yeah, we got a stomp shear. Hey, can you shear me some, you know, like 12 gauge something? Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Yeah, it's because there's so much more mass to it. It takes so much more than the thinner stuff. But anyway, this is, it's mild steel, it's cheap. It's a cheap material. It sits in the corner of the room, and this is a great use of very small pieces. The process in making these, and Johanna beat me up for years on doing this. She wanted to put mosaic on my stuff for years and years, and I just could not come up. I was seeing her gluing it to like this, and I didn't like the idea of seeing the edge of the tile and the grout or the adhesive that she uses, this epoxy stuff. And I really felt like this finished it up. This tied it together. This is the aha moment. It happened, I want to say fairly recently, right? This is my wife back here, by the way, and my daughter. Say hello, fam. But anyway, this is where the photocopies come in. Okay, so I found a leaf I really liked that I thought would not be too challenging for her to fit. When you look at her work, each of these tesserae, each piece is hand cut to fit. A good mosaicist has barely any gap between their pieces. That's their mark of professionalism. Every piece looks perfectly placed. There's a nice flow to it. She decided to go with the veins and run it out like this. So I make my photocopies. and then I transfer one to a piece of sheet metal. Now this is, once again, this is Kyle in production mode. I can't just make a one-off. I'm always thinking like, I might end up making 200 of these, okay? This might be like the next big gangbusters thing, and I might be making ginkgo leaves to the point where I hate ginkgo leaves. Currently, you're in luck. I like making ginkgo leaves. Anyway, so this is just my template, and this is just for tracing on the steel, okay? What I did is I knew the tiles that she's gonna use have approximately a 5/16 to 3/8 depth to them, okay? So I had to account for that with the edges. I also have to account for that this piece of steel is not gonna stretch when it's stomped on the fly press evenly. Anytime you got a corner like this, that's gonna work just like the cross peen on the hammer. It's gonna push that steel twice as hard as it's gonna do it up here in the front. So you gotta come up with a piece of steel that's big enough that you're not gonna have a lot of excess. The excess can also interfere with how it goes down into the press, but also have enough that when we go and we grind that back at the end to get that perfectly shaped tray, we have the proper depth, okay? So from that, we make this. And this is why I love a fly press. Whatever your imagination comes up with, you can put underneath the fly press. And as far as presses go, it is the safest press you can use. This has a 300-pound blow to it, plus whatever ass you put behind it. So if I want to pull with 150 pounds of pressure, I get 450, okay? It stinks if you're trying to do something really aggressive. You're going to wear yourself out. That's when hydraulic presses can really come in. But I don't have the safety issues that I do with the hydraulic press. This drives me nuts, especially if you guys are doing knives out there. You really need to be aware of that. When you have a 25-ton press coming down and your tooling fails and you decided the piece of ballistics acrylic was stupid, that's 25 tons of pressure coming at you. I don't know what the equivalent is in ballistics, but I bet it's about a rifle round. And this is not going to stop it. Now, I got the nice chest plate on mine, but I don't trust it for a second, you know. This is never going to have that. I have had tools crack on this. I have blown up S7 tool steel in this thing. It's never been scary. Number one, I'm always wearing these, always. And number two, I'm always wearing this when I'm using a press, okay? Anyway, that being said, this is mild steel, okay? So this is the male end of the die. And what I've done is I've shaped a keyway so it's accepted into the fly press. And then the other thing I did is I made a receiving die for it. And I've oversized the receiving die so that this nests with the material I plan to use. Originally I planned to use 16th. I then had to modify this to, I'm sorry, I originally planned to do 18 gauge. And then I modified it for 16. So it's a little tight, okay? Now, the biggest issue you're gonna have if you're doing top and bottom die work on a fly press is you gotta perfectly line them up, okay? And this is the system that I came up with. This is the thickness of the material I'm using, and I've just bent little L keyways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna space these out the whole way around, okay? That way, when I set this, I'm going to set the top first. Oh, hello. That way I can get this die coming down evenly, so I get as even a stretch into the form as possible. Okay? And then I've oversized it slightly. Now, this is just my system. This is how, I'm not claiming anything like Kyle came up with this amazing system. No, man, I just made a top and bottom die. You know, that's all it is. There are definite ways. I bet anybody here is an engineer would go, you know, Kyle, how you could improve on that. You know, you could probably use a lubricant, like a swabbing. That would help with the sticking, because the biggest issue you're gonna have when it comes down is that steel is gonna wanna stay in your receiving die, okay? So, that's issue number one. The other issue is if you were doing a lot of these in quick succession, you're going to have a heat issue where you get some expansion and contraction, and then you're going to have galling. You guys know what galling is? Galling is when a tool rubs against another and it starts pilling up the steel, and that could really jam this up pretty quick. My grandfather back during World War II, before he was old enough to enlist, worked in a gun factory in Chicago, I think, doing top and bottom die work, making big, huge guns that go on battleships. It sounds like the coolest thing. Like when he told me stories about like these huge drop hammers, like, you know, several thousand-pound drop hammer coming down and forging out half of a gun barrel in one hit. And then the dies, you know, were only good for, I can't remember how many gun barrels they would do. They would have to go in, they would prop these thousands and thousands of pound drop hammers up with 2x4s, and it'd be a guy in there with a pneumatic Dremel cleaning the galling out. Yeah, lots of stories, but like yeah, it sounded intense. But I kind of harken back to, you know, him when I think about this. Some of the tools I have, I don't know if the rest of you have this, like tools get passed on. Tools are an inheritance. And I have what I call dead guy tools. They just pop up, you know, like I have my grandfather's hammers, and I have an uncle's tools, and I have a friend of mine. I have my father-in-law's tools now. And they're with you, and they stay with you. And it's the stories in your shop that just make your work. I don't know, I really love it. So anyway, I'm gonna set this, and then I'll show you the process of forging out one of these pieces. Okay. I love this tool. This tool's so good. I love this tool. I don't know what this tool costs new now, but I only paid $1,200 for this tool when I bought it new.
$3,500.
Is it $3,500? God, man, they're so mean. Oh, I gotta come on. Yeah, you wanna spot me? Cool. Thanks, Jesse.
I got
All right.
the same one at home, so.
All right, so I've got that flat piece in the front where this nut grabs it. I'm just holding it up tight. And I'm gonna go ahead and just snug it a little bit. And then since I have a second set of hands here, I'm gonna get Jesse to slowly lower it down without my fingers. All right, go ahead. I think I have the arms set for this. Disco. Perfect, man. Cool. Okay. So now I can just make sure that all these spacings look good. Okay, I want a nice, consistent, congruent gap the whole way around. If it's thinner on one side, it's going to stretch more on that, or it's going to jam up more. Okay. What size does the Guild have? Is that a P5 or a P6?
I think 5.
P5? Okay. The one thing I do wish I had is a lathe. Not that I have room for a lathe, because that would open up making a lot of different tooling that I don't have. I also have, you guys are more than welcome to rummage through here and see all the ridiculous tools that I come up with. I do a lot of collars on the fly press. I do a lot of bending too, because a lot of the tables I'm making, the legs are 1.5 inch solid steel, and I shape it cold on this using a saddle like this and a ram that looks like this. And this thing has enough butt to it that it'll shape 1.5 inch solid.
So I have a bunch of 1-inch bolts, about that long.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them actually have the nut already loaded on them.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I get you a bunch of those.
What I want to do is get a couple of keyway pieces and then have my deck pieces have that key, and I can just slide it in and go boop. But a lot of what I'm doing, because it's all linear stuff, I'm working this direction. I can't have any obstruction here. This has to be smooth deck. This is one of the oddities that doesn't have to. All right, that seems good. That's tight. Wait a minute. Hang on. I goofed. I had the bolt slightly in when we lowered it, so the bolt is sitting on top of the ram. It's not actually. It should, yeah, lift just a slight here. There you go. Thank you. Just back this out more, and then we'll lower it. Okay, bring it down. There we go. Up, up. Lift again. I goofed on this. What I should have done, set this first, then brought it down. Put the. my bad. Technical difficulties. Please bear with us.
Please stand by.
Do, 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 do. Okay, all right. Bring that down again. Callan clocked me good with this thing once. I'm trying to remember what we were doing. I think we were punching 1.5 square with 3/4 holes. I had him hit it.
You in there?
Okay, go ahead, drop it now. Oh, that's good. Perfect. Okay, so it might be a little tight on. Oh, here's my other key. Perfect. Making sure. Don't remember it being crooked the last time I used it, but it could have been crooked. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So this is right. This is. I like doing this. Some people might not find this exciting. I'm going to pass these around. These are 3 failed attempts. In fact, I'm going to lose the earplugs. I don't need it for this. So when I was prototyping this, and you can see the galling when I had it too tight. 2 of these, the ram was too tight and it blew out the corners. So you can see what happens in that corner, how much stretch it is, okay? This one was close, but it still blew out the corner. And this one was undersized too much, and I just didn't get a consistent tray height when I was doing it. So this is my master template, looks like a piece of broccoli. And then I traced it on material, and then what I did is I went ahead and ran with the bandsaw up the middle of the stem, because you're going to have a hard time getting that material to bend a complete 180, plus it would wrap around the tip of the die, and it would be hard to extract it. Hopefully this doesn't give me any grief, but I got a hammer over there. So then I laid the die on top of my sheet, and I went ahead and traced it. And that just allows me to visually be able to match this up. Because when this is glowing hot, you're not going to be able to do it. You want to go. I want to throw it in there and go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to size it up on my drawing. And as far as making this tool so that it's strong enough to really put up with a lot of abuse, obviously I've got a pretty decent TIG weld the whole way around here. This is a 1/2 inch thick material for the die part, and then obviously the ram is inch solid, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just setting it, all right? So now I've got this shallow indentation. Now here's the thing. If you go thin enough on this, you could just stamp these out cold, just like a stamp press. I mean, that's what it is, it's a stamp press. And the reason I'm doing this is just so it's easy to sit it back in the tool when it's hot and it's ready to go. There's nothing worse than having a hot piece of metal that's losing heat really quick and you're like trying to micro adjust it. Okay, that's good. That's in position. What pair of tongs do I want to use? Yeah, we'll use this one. Did you get it? I was gonna pass it around. So this is all I did. I just sat it. Yeah. Now you could do this like really old school, and you could get a stake, and you could raise this thing by hand, and in 5 hours you'd have one. But that's, yeah, so it's just setting it, whoa, feedback, sorry. Just so you can just drop it in and go.
Making sure that the line, everything is lined
Yeah,
up
yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
And, then you just,
and you can see it's a little thinner on the corners. That's because it's going to stretch more here than it is out here. Now we're going to grind all this on the disc sander in the end. But anyway, not too exciting. Alrighty. This is 16. I prefer 18. 18 gauge is a nice steel. It's easy to move, but it also TIGs easy. I'm not the world's best TIG welder. I mean, I'm pretty good, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like going to be doing steam pipe anytime soon. Yeah. You would.
these 16 or these 18?
Those are 16, yeah. Hey, you want to do it? Go for it. Slam it, man. Yeah. Cool. All right, raise up. Come out, come out. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Yay. All right, so there it is. And I think I shifted it because we're a little fat on this side than this side. But then what I'll do is, there's a couple things you could do. Is you could scribe it and you could cut it with a cut wheel if you really like cut wheels and like eating cut wheel dirt. Or you can just disc sand it. Now it does bend this end up. What I'll usually do is I heat this and then I just forge that back down. And once I get that nice and flat, I'll TIG that up. And after I get it clean, I'll shape it to fit what it's going on. Okay. All right, we're gonna do one more. Hopefully we get a better one than that.
Worry too much about the scale after doing much?
Ah, that's a good question. So, it does drop a bunch of scale in your bottom die and you need to clean that out every time. Otherwise, that will end up in your next one. It'll give you an input. So you can either, I'm just gonna blow it out. When I'm doing this, I have a compressor right here. Like if I'm doing a lot of them, I'm just like, go, boom. So this system is the same way I do shovel molds. Now these I do use 16 gauge. I find that 16 gauge makes a nice strong shovel. It's going to last for a while. Where it rivets to the handle, it doesn't wear out as fast as 18 would. Okay? These are a lot easier to take out, obviously, because it's a bell shape. It's going to want to come forward. Okay, so after it's pressed, it just pops right out. And in this one, I think I usually allow about an extra 1/8 of an inch of material. So it's going to have a little bit of a butterfly edge. And you can either, over the horn or over a stake or something, forge that down flat, or I just lock it in the vise. I chop it off with a cut wheel, clean it up nice and neat, get it riveted to a handle, and it's a gorgeous shovel. But anyway, and these tools, they're totally worth the time to make, man. This, I think I've had this for 18 years. I don't know. I haven't done crap to it. It just sits there. Woo. All right, Smushy. That's the fly press's name, Smushy. Oh, that's a good one. All right. Second time's a charm. Hey, bring it down again. I wonder if you can pinch it. All right, now bring it up. There we go. That's what I want to see. Yeah, that part sucks. So like I was saying, if it's too tight, here, I'm going to kill this. I don't have to yell as much. If it's too tight, what you could do is look at the back of your piece and see there's a little bit of galling here on this edge. Go back to your ram and grind in those areas. Okay, take a little bit of that steel off so you have a little bit more room. Do it slowly. Don't be really aggressive with it. Okay, because the more you take away from your ram, the less resolution you're going to have. This is already a second generation. Well, actually, it's a third generation. We had the leaf, then we made a photocopy of the leaf. That's second generation, and then we made the form. That's third. Actually, it's the fourth, because this is coming off the third. But anyway. But yeah, that's basic on doing like a press tray like this. I think the applications are awesome. I'd love to see someone that's a glass artist who does frit. You guys know what frit is? It's where you melt like glass dust. It's almost like enameling in that. Make it, yeah, it would be really cool. Ooh, cast metals into it. That'd be fun. It'd be heavy though. Yeah, cast copper. But anyway, that's the thing. And then you end up with this. And just several hours later, it's like a cooking show. Okay, so on our leaf, so I want to make this look more realistic. This is real simple. Files that I use the crap out of. I'm sorry if I curse so much, by the way. I'm a sailor. Can't help it. This is a 3/16 Final Cut V file. Love this thing. Highly aggressive. These are furred files too. I like that brand. They tend to make pretty good files. You can order them out of McMaster-Carr. This is an altered file. The only reason it's altered is because I broke it. This is called a knife file. Okay. Usually they're about that long. I don't know why they make them that long, because you only use this much of it at one point, and they always break. They always break. Probably because I'm just too aggressive with it. But, and I'd love to see them make this. I want to go to the factory and watch them make it. How do they put the teeth on that little edge that then come around? Like it's the most insane thin file. But this is a great one for cutting pieces. And then half rounds, man, or half ovals. This is a 1-inch, and then this is a 3/8. And like I said, I buy all these from McMaster-Carr. They're not too expensive. They last forever if you treat them nice. I mean, by nice, I just throw them in a drawer. But I do have a padding in the bottom of the drawer. So they are clinking around, and they're not getting shipped anywhere. If I was transporting these, I would make a sleeve, because if they knock against each other, they do get chipped and all that. And then the next best thing I always tell people when I'm doing file work is get a good carding brush, okay? And that way you can clean out the teeth on your file. Steel doesn't seem to gall up a file as much as non-ferrous metals do. Copper is horrible in files. Aluminum. I hate aluminum. I never touch aluminum. Yeah. But yeah, I just try to clamp this so there's no vibration. I don't need goggles for this. And what I'm do is I just kind of, where do I want to set some teeth? And I just start cutting a tooth in. And then just bevel out from it. So I'm kind of like, I'm making a shape like this. It's like just filing in, making a little butt on it, you know? That's all it is. So we'll do a little bit of this. It's kind of boring to watch people do this, but. This, I think, is one of the small details that makes something go from like, oh, that's nice, to, oh, that's cool. I like that. And it's just time. It's just that extra step, you know? Just add a couple little lobes to it. And if you want to do the V, the knife file comes in handy for that. And you can file the whole thing out. On the really deep ones I actually went in with a hacksaw and cut it, and then went back in with this guy and cleaned it up. But that's basically it. Yeah, I think if I go any deeper than this, I would use the bandsaw. Oh, by the way, most files only have teeth that go one direction. I can't tell you how many apprentices I've caught doing this. I'm going to cut through this thing. You just destroyed a $30 file. Thanks for doing that. I actually saw a really famous metalsmith do a demo once, and they did that. I'm not going to list their name. I'm not going to out them. But I couldn't help it. I was the jerk in the audience. It was like, are you supposed to treat a file that way when you're filing a piece of steel?
What did he say?
oh, it's fine. This is a really nice file. I'm fine doing it that way. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm just gonna put that bug out there.
Kyle, I'm curious because I'm sure you've tried this. What's the advantage of doing like cutting the deep grooves post forging versus cutting it midway and?
You could. You mean like with a chisel, like a hot cut?
Yeah.
You could. It's really thin. Sure.
No, I'm just
Sure,
curious
you
if
could
that
do
was
it.
something
I would put down a cutting plate on your anvil because you're going to be blowing the whole way through, and just like a sacrificial like this,
Say like a
one of these.
like
Well, okay. So Josh has got a good point. What if you put it in the vise and you cold chiseled it? You could, but you're going to distort your leaf too. So you might have to go back and planish that out. And here's the thing too, is that it's really thin. Like we went from 1/4 inch thick, we're down to like 18 gauge, 20 gauge here at the edge. Here, you guys want to just look at what I did. It's not mine. Kyle took a file to it. Oh wow. It's going to be brittle, and it's going to work harden pretty quickly. That would be my concern if you were like cold chiseling. But I think if you had it flat on the anvil and you really wanted to cut that piece out, yeah, take a crescent chisel and hog it. But I would still go and clean it up. One of the things I'm really anal about with anything, people want to touch it with their hands, and so it needs to be safe. So any sharp edges, like a hot chisel cut line, would have to be filed out. Yeah.
So you'll be filing anyways.
Yeah, this is going to be mounted on a wall. This, by the way, is a great system for mounting stuff easily in drywall. It's got these 3 pegs. You just position it however you want on the wall. Mark the holes. Drill a slightly undersized hole in the drywall. Put a bead of silicone on there. Push it in. It's done. It's the same way that a lot of sign companies attach letters to walls. Yeah, that's actually where I learned it from, is watching the trades, man. You go on a job site, pay attention to the trades, because a lot of what they do crosses over to your material. Yeah. That's actually the best bit of advice my dad ever told me, because we were working on his house together. He decided to double the size of his house after all of his kids grew up and left for some reason. Probably because he had money and he could finally afford it. But anyway, we're like putting in rafters or something. I can't remember. And I just looked at him. I was like, how the heck does a circulatory nurse know how to do this? And he was like, well, I did the trades for a while, but the most important thing I ever did, Kyle, is I just stopped and listened and watched. And that's true, man. It's like that's how you pick up skills. Shut the hell up and listen. Anyway. All right, that's all I got, guys. Any questions? I don't know.